The boy was maybe 9 years old, sitting on the curb outside the diner in the January cold, and nobody was stopping. Cora noticed him through the window during her split shift. The dead hour between lunch and dinner when she wiped down tables and tried not to think about the hospital bill sitting on her kitchen counter. He was in a school uniform, navy blazer with a crest on the pocket, the kind of uniform that cost more than her weekly paycheck. His lip was split, his backpack was gone. He was trying very hard not to cry, which is how she could tell he was genuinely scared. She went outside without thinking about it. That was how most of the decisions in her life had been made, without thinking, just moving toward whatever needed doing. "Hey," she crouched down to his level. "You okay?" He looked at her with the particular suspicion of a child who had been taught very carefully not to talk to strangers. "I'm fine. You're bleeding." It stopped. She sat down on the curb next to him. The concrete was cold through her uniform pants. She didn't say anything else for a moment, just sat there, which seemed to confuse him more than any question would have. "They took my bag," he said finally. "How many?" "3. He paused. "Older." Cora nodded. "You have a phone?" "They took that too." She handed him hers. "Call whoever you need to call." He stared at it. Something complicated moved across his face. Not gratitude exactly, more like calculation, like he was trying to figure out what she wanted from him. "I don't want anything," she said, reading him. "I work here. You can sit inside if you want. It's warm." He looked at the diner, then back at her. "My father is going to be very angry at the kids who did this, at me, for letting it happen." Cora thought about that. That doesn't sound right. He's not a very understanding man. Well, she stood up and brushed off her pants. "Call him anyway. Better he hears it from you." The boy, his name was Owen, she found out later. Owen Vonnick dialed a number from memory and held the phone to his ear. Whatever he said was quite quick, clipped in the way of someone reporting rather than explaining. When he handed the phone back, his father was still on the line. She almost didn't answer. It seemed intrusive. But the call was still live, so she lifted it to her ear. "Hello? Who is this?" Not a question, a demand. The voice was low and even and carried the particular quality of someone who was accustomed to answers arriving immediately. "My name is Cora. I work at Lyndon's Diner on Marsh Street. Your son is outside. He's okay." Split lip, nothing serious, but some older kids took his bag and his phone. "He used mine to call you." Silence. Then, "Is he inside?" "Not yet. I was about to take him in. Do that." Another pause. "Don't let him out of your sight." The line went dead. She looked at Owen. "Your dad's coming," Owen said with the exhausted certainty of a child who has watched his father arrive at situations his whole life. "He just gets there faster than you'd expect." 40 minutes. That was how long it took. Cora had gotten Owen a hot chocolate and a grilled cheese and watched him eat with the focused, methodical efficiency of a boy who was pretending he hadn't been scared. She'd cleaned the cut on his lip with the first aid kit from the back. She'd gotten back to work. The dinner rush was starting, tables filling up, and Ray, her manager, had given her the look that meant she was already pushing it. She was taking an order at table 6 when the door opened. She didn't look up immediately. She was writing down, "Cheeseburger well done, no onions." And then the table went quiet in that particular way tables go quiet when something has shifted in a room, and she looked up. The man who walked in was tall and dressed in a charcoal coat that probably cost more than her car. Dark hair, the kind of face that didn't give much away. He moved through the room like someone who was used to rooms moving around him, scanning once, and then his eyes landed on Owen in the corner booth and something in his expression unlocked. Just briefly, just enough for her to catch it, before it locked back down again. He crossed to the booth and crouched in front of his son the way she had crouched on the curb, and she watched Owen say something and the man nod, and then the man turned and looked directly at her. She was still holding her order pad. She walked over because there was nothing else to do. "You're Cora," he said. "I am Vanek." He didn't offer his hand. "You called me. Your son called you. I just talked to you after." Something shifted in his expression, not quite amusement but adjacent to it. "Thank you for sitting with him." He was on the curb. It was cold. Most people walked past. "I know," she said. "I watched from the window for about 3 minutes before I went out. I was waiting for someone else to stop first." She wasn't sure why she told him that, probably because it was true. No one did. Owen was watching them with the intent focus of a child archiving information. Vanek reached into his coat pocket and produced a card, then a money clip, and she already knew what was coming and had already decided. "Thank you," she said, "but no, really." He paused. "It's not charity, it's a gesture, I know. I'm not offended by it." She tucked her order pad under her arm. "Your son is a good kid. He was polite and he didn't complain and he ate everything I put in front of him. That's enough. She glanced at Owen. The grilled cheese is on me. Vanek looked at her for a moment with an expression she couldn't entirely read. The bag, he said. The phone. I'll have someone look into it. Okay. Do you know what they looked like? She described what Owen had told her. 3 boys, older, the corner of Marsh and Delancey. Vanek listened without writing anything down. She had the feeling he didn't need to. He stood. We'll be going. Good luck, she said, and meant it without quite knowing why. She was halfway back to the kitchen when he said from behind her, Cora. She turned. What's your last name? Briggs, she said. Why? He didn't answer. He just nodded once, like she'd confirmed something, and steered Owen toward the door. The next morning, Ray called her into the back before her shift started. Cora had worked at Linden's for 2 years. She knew the back office, the stacks of invoices, the broken mini-fridge, the calendar on the wall where Ray tracked her schedule in red pen. She knew what it meant when Ray called her in before a shift instead of after. You know a man named Vanek? Ray said. Her stomach did something she didn't like. I met him yesterday. His son. I know what happened with the son. Ray picked up a piece of paper from his desk. He called this morning. Asked about you. What kind of asked? Ray turned the paper over like he was deciding whether to show her. He wanted to know how long you'd worked here, what your schedule was, whether you had any complaints on file. He set it down. I told him you were my best server and that if he was planning to poach you, he could go to hell. Cora breathed. What did he say? He laughed. Ray said it like it surprised him. Then he said he wasn't poaching, he just wanted to make sure you were treated fairly. He looked at her. What did you do to this man, Cora? I gave his kid a grilled cheese. Ray stared at her for a long moment. He's sending someone to fix the exhaust fan in the kitchen. Ray, it's been broken for 8 months. The health inspector nearly shut us down in October. He held up a hand. I'm not saying I understand it. I'm saying don't argue with a working exhaust fan. She thought about arguing anyway. She went and started her shift instead. Vanek came back on a Thursday. He sat in her section, which maybe wasn't an accident, and ordered black coffee and the eggs, and when she brought them he said, without looking up from his phone, Your mother's name is Rita Briggs. Cora set down the coffee, carefully. Excuse me? She's at St. Augustine Medical Center. Has been for 3 weeks. He put the phone down. The bill is significant. The diner felt very loud suddenly. The clatter of cutlery, someone laughing at the counter, the fixed exhaust fan humming in the kitchen. You looked into me, she said. I look into everyone. That's not an answer. He met her eyes. He had dark eyes, steady, the kind that had probably made a lot of people feel like they were being measured. You're right. That's not an answer. He wrapped both hands around the coffee mug. I look into people when they matter. I don't matter. I gave your kid a sandwich. You sat on a cold curb with him for 40 minutes and didn't ask for anything and told him his father's reaction wasn't right. He said it evenly, without inflection. That matters? Cora looked at the table next to him, which was flagging her for more water. She looked back at Vanek. I don't want your help with my mother's bills, she said. I want to be clear about that. I know. Then why are you telling me? He picked up his fork. Because you're going to take a second job to cover it. Probably nights. Which means you're going to be exhausted and make mistakes and get hurt, or you're going to burn out in 6 months and quit both jobs and still be behind. He cut into the eggs. I'm telling you because you should know what the situation looks like from the outside. She stood there. The eggs are good, he said. They're the same eggs as everywhere. Most places don't cook them right. He glanced up at her. Yours are cooked right. She went and refilled the water at table 4 and thought about what it would feel like to throw a full coffee pot at someone's head just as an abstract exercise. It was mildly calming. He came back the following Thursday and the one after that. It was not romance. Not yet, not really, not in any form she would have recognized or permitted. It was more like weather. He arrived. He sat in her section. He drank coffee and ate whatever she brought him without complaint or commentary beyond the occasional specific observation that was somehow more disarming than praise. He told her once that she had a gift for reading tables. Not just orders but moods, the invisible tension between two people sharing a meal. She'd said that sounded like something you'd read on a motivational poster. He'd said he didn't read motivational posters. She found out who he was the way she found out most things. Sideways, by accident, from a comment Ray made about the exhaust fan. She Googled the name. Vanek Capital. Real estate, private investment, 4 city blocks downtown that he'd developed from derelict warehouses in 11 years. The profile photo was stiff and official and looked nothing like the man who sat in her corner booth on Thursday mornings eating eggs. She found 3 other references that were less official. 2 news stories about alleged ties, and one that was vague enough to mean anything or nothing, in the careful language journalists used when they couldn't prove something but couldn't ignore it either. She thought about asking him directly. She decided not to, not because she was afraid of the answer, but because she wanted to form her own answer first. He was, she concluded, a man who had built something significant and kept most of the scaffolding hidden. Whether the scaffolding was structural or rotten, that was the question. She found out about the scaffolding in the way she found out most things, because she was paying attention when someone assumed she wasn't. The man's name was Dex. He came in on a Wednesday and sat at the counter and talked to the new hire, a kid named Ben who'd been there 3 weeks. And Dex was friendly and easy and ordered a lot of coffee refills, the kind of customer who keeps you busy and tips in a way that feels like permission. Cora noticed him because of the way he watched the door. Not anxiously, more like habitually, the way certain men watch exits without thinking about it. She noticed the second time because he mentioned Vanek. She wasn't eavesdropping. She was restocking the sugar dispensers at the end of the counter, and the diner was quiet and Dex had a carrying voice. He said something about what Vanek doesn't know, and Ben said something back she couldn't hear, and Dex laughed. She restocked the sugar dispensers and went back to the kitchen and didn't think about it, consciously, for about 2 hours. Then she thought about it very deliberately on the walk home. By the next Thursday, she had thought about it enough to say something. "I'm going to tell you something," she said, setting down his coffee. "And I want you to know I'm not telling you because I want anything from you. I'm telling you because it seems like something you should know." Vanek looked up from his phone. She told him about Dex, what she'd heard, what she'd observed, the second visit 3 days later when Dex had come back and sat with a different man for an hour and a half and ordered almost nothing. Vanek listened in the same way he always listened, completely still, no reaction she could name. "You're not asking me what to do with this," he said when she finished. "It's your business, not mine. Most people would ask. Most people would want credit," she said. "I'm not most people." He looked at her for a moment. "No," he said, "you're not." She picked up the coffee carafe. "The eggs today?" "Yes." She came back with eggs and toast, and when she set them down, he said without looking up, "Dex has been with my organization for 7 years. That's long enough to know where things are kept," she said. "Yes." He picked up his fork. "It is." She had the feeling she'd just watched something end for someone who didn't know it was ending yet. It was not a comfortable feeling, but it was better than the alternative. Her mother had a bad week in February. Cora knew because the hospital called twice, and because she'd started calculating which credit card had room on it, with the automatic efficiency of someone who has done that math so many times it lives in her fingers instead of her head. She picked up an extra shift at a bar 2 nights a week. She stopped buying lunch and ate from the diner kitchen instead, the scraps Ray left for her without commenting on it, which was his particular form of kindness. Vanek noticed on a Thursday. He always noticed things she didn't announce. "You look like you haven't slept," he said. "I haven't much." "Your mother." "My mother," she confirmed. She wasn't going to pretend. She was too tired for pretending. He was quiet for a moment. "There's a specialist," he said, "at Memorial Northwest. She's the best in the city for what your mother has. I can make a call." Cora set down the carafe. "No, Cora, I appreciate it." She said it clearly, calmly, because she meant it. "I actually do. But I can't let you pay for my mother's medical care, because then I owe you something I can't repay, and that changes what this is." She gestured between them, a small motion. "Whatever this is." He looked at her steadily. "I'm not asking for repayment. I know you're not. That's not the point." She picked up the carafe. "The point is that I need to be able to look at you without calculating a debt. She stopped, started again. "I need this table to be just a table. Does that make sense?" A long pause. "It makes sense," he said. She nodded and went back to work. The next morning she got a call from St. Augustine. The specialist at Memorial Northwest had reviewed her mother's file and had availability in 2 weeks. The consultation would be covered by a grant program through the hospital foundation. She sat in her car in the parking lot for a long time. When she saw Vanek the following Thursday, she said, "The grant program." He was looking at his phone. "Vanek," he looked up. "The grant program," she said again. "I know." He said nothing. "I can't be angry," she said slowly, working it out as she spoke, "because you did it in a way that doesn't require anything from me, and because it's my mother." She looked at him. "But I want you to know that I know, and I want you to know that I'm keeping track. Not of what I owe you. I'm keeping track of who you actually are." He held her gaze for a moment. Something in his expression shifted. Not much, just enough. "And?" Jury's still out, she said, but it's leaning. She went to get his eggs. The thing that happened in March was not something she expected to navigate sober, but she did. She was on a close shift, the last one out, locking up the back door at 10:45 when a car pulled up that she recognized. The dark SUV, the particular way it idled. Owen got out before Vanek did, which meant it wasn't a coincidence, which meant something was wrong enough that he'd brought Owen anyway, and that told her something. "We were in the neighborhood," Owen said with the unconvincing confidence of a 9-year-old delivering a line he'd been given. "You live across town," Cora said. Owen looked at his father. Vanek looked, and this was the word she kept coming back to, tired. Not sleep-tired, something deeper. "There's a situation at the restaurant down the street," he said. "I needed to move Owen, and this was the closest place I trusted." She looked at him for a moment. "Closest place you trusted," she repeated. He didn't repeat himself. She'd noticed. He never did. She unlocked the back door. "Come in, I'll make hot chocolate." Owen was asleep in the corner booth by 11:15, using his blazer as a pillow. Vanek sat across from her at the counter, both hands around a coffee mug she'd made too strong and he'd drunk without mentioning it. "He's good," she said, nodding toward Owen. "He is. He told me last week, when he came in with you, that he wants to be a marine biologist." She paused. "I don't think he's told you that." Vanek looked at her. "How do you know?" "Because he said don't tell my dad yet, he has opinions about career paths." She kept her voice even. "He will tell you. He just needs to get there on his own." Vanek was quiet. "Then, he told you about the career path comment? He also told me you make very good pancakes on Sunday mornings and that you sing in the car when you think he's asleep." She watched the man's expression do something she'd never seen it do before. Something caught off guard and almost embarrassed, which on him looked like wonder. "So, not a monster." "I never claimed to be." "No," she said. "You never claimed to be much of anything. You let other people fill that in." He looked at her for a long time. "Cora," he said. "Vanek. My first name is Eli." She held very still. "You can use it," he said, like it cost him something to say. "If you want." She looked down at the counter, looked back up. "Ellie," she said, testing the shape of it. He nodded. Outside, the street was quiet. In the corner booth, Owen breathed slowly and didn't wake up. The diner smelled like coffee and grease, and the cleaning solution she'd used on the counters, and it was the least romantic setting she could imagine, and it was somehow exactly right. "Tell me something true," she said, "about the parts you don't put in profiles." He was quiet for a moment. Then, slowly, he began to talk. Her mother came home in April, not recovered. It wasn't that simple. It was never that simple, and anyone who told a story where illness resolved cleanly had never sat in a hospital corridor waiting for a number to change. But home, stable, under the care of the specialist from Memorial Northwest, who turned out to be a small, brisk woman named Dr. Chen, who had zero patience for hedging and explained everything twice in plain language until she was certain it had landed, and whom Cora liked immediately and completely. Eli drove them home. She hadn't asked him to. He'd offered in the particular way he offered things, not as a question, just as a statement of what was going to happen, which she'd learned by now was his version of asking. She'd said yes because her mother would need help getting up the stairs, and because she was tired, and because she was honest enough with herself to admit this. She wanted him there. Her mother, who had been quiet for most of the drive, looked at Eli in the rearview mirror and said, "You're the one who made the call." Eli kept his eyes on the road. "I know a doctor." Her mother looked at Cora, looked back at Eli. "You sing in the car?" Cora closed her eyes. "Owen talks too much," Eli said, and there was something in his voice she had never heard before. Something light, something close to ease, and her mother laughed. The first real laugh Cora had heard from her in months, and it filled the car like sun through a window you'd forgotten to open. He came to the diner the following Thursday, same as always. Sat in her section, ordered coffee and eggs. She brought them and didn't leave. "Owen got into the summer program," she said. "The marine science one, at the university." She had helped him with the application. In February, 3 sessions at the corner booth, Owen sprawled over the forms with the intensity of a child who had decided. "He called me yesterday." Eli looked up. Something in his face that was not quite surprise, more like it confirmed something he'd already suspected. "He didn't tell me. He wanted to tell you himself. Tonight." She set the coffee down. "I'm telling you now so your face does the right thing when he does." Ellie stared at her. "The right thing," she said, "is proud, in case you need the reminder." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Cora, Ellie, I don't." He stopped. Started again. This was new. She had never seen him start again. "I'm not good at this." "At what?" He gestured between them, differently than she had gestured months ago. Hers had been an act of self-protection. His was something else. At letting things matter, he said. At letting people matter, without a pause, without calculating what it costs. She thought about that. I do that too, she said. I just do it faster. You do it better. No. She leaned on the counter. I just gave up pretending I wasn't doing it. She looked at him. It's okay for things to cost something, Eli. That's not a weakness. He was very still. Come to dinner, she said. Not Thursday breakfast. Dinner. You and Owen. My mother is making something she claims is pasta, but I have doubts. Something moved across his face, that thing she'd first seen outside the diner, the thing that unlocked and then locked again. This time it stayed unlocked. What time? He said. 7. He nodded. She picked up her order pad and went to table 3, and when she glanced back, he was looking at his coffee with an expression she had never seen on a public face before. Something open, something quiet, something that looked, she thought, like the very beginning of relief.